Hey guys, so I do have a lot to talk about in this particular artwork. That a lot has happened, and there was a long break between me and this current video, like almost a full week. One, over the weekend last week, I had to I was with my family in Arkansas, and we were just being kind of goofy. But in terms of finishing this artwork, it did take a little bit. So I was trying to figure out my next artwork, and I was doing a comic, and I hated the comic. Holy crap, did I hate the comic. So I kept trying to figure out what my next artwork was going to be. It was driving me absolutely bonkers. But I kind of settled on this 4-part illustration idea that is kind of a unique idea. Unfortunately, it is incredibly suggestive, and at least two parts of the artwork I cannot put on YouTube because they're just straight up hentai. And I'm gonna be honest about that. So I can't share them, but it's one of those, like, this artwork admittedly is pretty degenerate even for me. It came about from an idea that was like in my brain where it was like, I was literally Googling, because I'm a really big fan of birds, and Mume's a bird, and I got curious, and I'm like, she's a barn owl. Like, when exactly is, like, what are they like? Do they, like, are they monogamous? Like, when's breeding season? And that is where the inappropriate idea came to mind, where I'm like, it's because the breeding season for an American barn owl is actually March all the way to October, which is like, I was like, oh, that's kind of nuts. But you know, it's September now, so I thought, okay, I'm literally gonna make an artwork where it's like Mume is she's been waiting since March, and you've been a very bad husband who is not being attentive to their wife. So that was what the idea that's the idea that came about, and it's pretty NSFW, I'm gonna be real, but I did in fact really like the idea. People online really liked the idea as well, and overall the artwork did really well. So now that I've discussed like where I was, what this artwork was, how it came about, what the theme is, and what I can't show for the next two artworks. I can technically only show the last artwork in this series after this one. But I want to explain in particular with this artwork something that is actually pretty exciting, and that is a slight style change in my artwork. And the style change is actually this. I am treating it more painterly. In fact, I stick with like a base tone, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an airbrush to overlay multiple colors in the base tone, then use a multiply layer and use multiple colors and layer almost a mismatch of very organic, natural colors into it and make it look a bit more complex. Because real life colors are not so uniform. And anime is a very uniform expression of medium, but if you want to add a little more realism and a little more interest to your artwork, what you can do is you can bring a bit of realism to it. And the way you do that is you add, like, for example, the human skin tone it's not exactly pink or red, especially when we're dealing with like Caucasian or like Asian skin tones. Because, and what I mean by Asian, I mean, well, that. But there's actually lots of green in the human skin tone if you're white or have like a Japanese Asian skin tone. There's a mixture of green in it that is actually an underlying level of like veins, and it's just natural to the body. So you'll be seeing me add kind of a bluish, almost slightly greenish hint to the skin tone when I start rendering here. But the goal here was to be a lot more painterly and kind of add another level of intrigue to my artwork. I'm still sticking with the same lighting scheme, the same general vibe that I've been doing for a long time, so it's still technically my style, but it has like that much like added depth to it. I was trying to go with like a 3D idea for a bed, but I didn't like the 3D bed that I had, so I just physically painted one in and kind of kept it simple because the background is not the focus, so maybe adding a 3D render that's like extra detailed would be too much. So here we are starting to add the shading, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on the bend of the arm, and the character is illuminated very well in this particular artwork. Usually I kind of add a dramatic lighting where there's like extra shadow, but in this one I wanted the character to be well illuminated and very interesting to look at. The focus is on her, you know what I mean? So we're adding the blush, we're adding all the details, and here pretty soon we are going to start adding the third layer of color. Here's where I start to add the blue. I give it a little bit of a green hint using Control U and changing the hue and saturation. And this allows us to have kind of, like I said, so here you can actually see my color picker, which is allows me to keep track of all the colors I use. So if you look at that top layer, you will see every color I use in this artwork, and you'll notice a uniform theme. It's very much blues and reds, and it's like slight greens. So that's the idea here. And we're going to be moving pretty quickly here. I didn't do that much interesting stuff in terms of the clothes. In fact, I started doing the skirt here, and then as I was doing it, I didn't like how I was doing it, so I had to go through and change it. But we're adding harsh lights here to kind of like bring out the extra dimension that I'm not implying through shading, but instead implying through light. Lighting is like my favorite thing ever. So focusing on that was like super, super important to me. But now we're starting to kind of adjust the darker parts of the hair to kind of make a little more sense. We're adding a little bit blue into the hair to like make it match the shadows and keeping them cool, the added color scheme. But here you'll notice I started adding more detail than I typically do to the hair, and I'm definitely like liking how that looks personally. And I'm going to continue doing that. And then if I start later on adding way too much detail, I do what every artist does, and I start to pull back on the detail and kind of simplify a bit. But overall, I think it turned out pretty good here. So here we have kind of a strong foundation. We're going to do the eyes, and I started doing more detail in the eyes like I used to, because I stopped doing a lot of detail in the eyes, and like eyes used to be my thing. So like it really bothered me lately that my eyes have been kind of lacking, so I've been going back and doing a little more detail that I used to do in the past. But I think it turned out pretty good. We're going to use a lot of add glow and reflections to kind of bring this whole thing to life. So now we're going to start adding some post-processing, which is how I usually bring everything forward in kind of a beautiful way. We do some add glow, tone curve, color balance, and we're just kind of fixing everything to make it look right. We're adding some glow, and then we're doing an unsharpened mask to make it finished, and kind of some breath to kind of make her, you know. But that is how I made this artwork, and thank you so much for watching. I know typically I kind of run on a bit, but I did have a lot to talk about, and I was super excited about it. So if you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.